So in our last video, we talked about the ways to get into ketosis and just the general ideas, but now we're going to talk a little bit about our energy sources, the energy stores in our body that allow us to eventually get to ketosis and what we have to overcome to get there. All right, so first we're going to start with the understanding of how much glucose or glycogen we have stored in our body. Okay, that's the glucose source in our body, and a little bit about protein as well in our body. Okay, so a lot of people, when they start into the idea of ketosis or ketogenic diet or any kind of diet or healthy way of eating, they oftentimes will fall off. They start strong and then they fall off. Even within a single day, a lot of people will start the day off strong, and then by the end of the day, their resolution goes down and they find themselves snacking on things that they feel like they shouldn't be snacking on, all right? So we need to understand some of the concepts behind how we use energy, how we store energy in our body in order to be able to know how to overcome these challenges when we're trying to do something like ketosis or so forth. All right, so the first thing you need to understand is that the way we store sugar in our body, glucose. Okay, now you ask any doctor or any physiologist, what is the basic energy source for the human cell, and they'll tell you glucose. All right, now I know some of you guys are already chomping at the bit going, wait a minute, hang on, we're going to get to that in a video, okay? Don't worry, I'm going to get to what you're thinking right now in one of the next videos. But let's go along with that basic assumption, okay, that glucose is the basic energy supply, and we've already talked about what are the alternative energy supplies in some of the cells, but that glucose is the basic energy supply. How much do we actually store in our body, right? How much do we have carrying around with us every single moment that if we were to stop eating right now, how much sugar would we have to burn before we ever got to our fat stores, all right? So in our muscle and in our liver are the two places that we store glycogen, okay? And what is glycogen? Glycogen is just a bunch of glucose molecules that have been bound together to make it more compact and make it easier to store in the liver or in the muscle, all right? So we have about 400 grams of glycogen stored in our muscle and about 100 grams of glycogen stored in our liver. Now you can make an even exchange glycogen for glucose when it comes to figuring out how many calories that is. So there's approximately 4 calories per gram. All right, so if we have 500, that's about 2,000 calories worth of glucose in our body. Now that may be a little bit more, a little bit less, depending on how big we are, how muscular we are, how big our liver is, and so forth. But the average person has about 2,000 calories worth of glycogen or glucose stored in their liver and in their muscles. Okay, now most people have about a 2,000 calorie requirement per day. Some people a little bit more, some people a little bit less. But you can see that you could probably not eat anything for a full 24 hours, some people even longer than that, without ever getting to your fat stores. You're just using your glycogen stores, okay? Which means that if you skip a day of eating, you haven't really done very much if you go back the next day and you eat a bunch of junk, okay? Because all you're going to do is put the glycogen back in your muscle and in your liver, and you've done nothing but lose a pound, gain a pound, lose a pound, gain a pound, okay? Doesn't really help you. Okay, but it just makes you miserable on the day that you didn't eat anything, right? So unless you're planning out what you're going to do, kind of starving yourself intermittently doesn't really work, okay? Difference between starvation and fasting, all right? We're going to talk about that because fasting means that this is involved. Starvation means that there's no involving this. It's just, I'm not going to eat, okay? So if you're not taking in sugar, if you're not taking a source of glucose in from your diet, then the body has some alternatives. Number one is going to use its stores. When the stores run out, the next step is going to be to start accessing your protein. All right, now where the heck is protein stored in our body? Now, first thing that you need to understand is we do not carry around protein stores. We do not carry extra protein along, okay? We carry extra glucose, we carry extra fat, but we do not carry extra protein. Our protein stores are structural things that give us our shape and our strength, our muscles, which allow us to move, okay? Things like the channels that allow things to go in and out of our cells, the receptors, the things that detect what's going on around our cells, or our immunoglobulins that give us our immunity. Okay, Now, you tell me, which one of those do you not want to have? Do you want to lose your shape? Do you want to lose your muscle? Do you want to lose your immunity? Or do you want your cells not to be able to take in or put out what it needs to in order for you to stay alive? Any one of those is not a really good choice. Okay, so using our muscle stores is probably the last thing we want to do to be making glucose. Okay, but the good news is the body's smart enough that it's going to just use our muscle stores first before it starts accessing some of these other things. So we have a little bit of room, and this is going to go away pretty quick if we do some important things, which we're going to talk about in some of the other videos. Okay, but the basic idea here is we don't have a lot of glucose on board. It's stored in the form of glycogen. We only have about a day's worth, maybe a day and a half worth of glucose in our body, and once that's gone, now we're going to have to use something else to make that glucose, and that something may be protein. If we don't do the right thing, we'll lose muscle, or it can be fat. And that's what we're talking about when we're talking about getting into ketosis, is switching gears into that other energy source. Okay, so in our next video, we're going to talk about fat, how much fat we have on board, how much energy is there, and what do we need to do to access that. Okay, and if you like this video, make sure you like it, you share it, and check out silenceyourfatgene.com for the other videos in the series. And please make sure to look for our next video that I mentioned just before. All right, hope that helped. We'll see you at the next video.